Hi there. I'm Dr. Matthew Barden. I am the instructor of music industry at Hines Community College in Raymond, Mississippi. And today I'm going to be talking about how I've used Freesound in the classroom for creating future artists. Going back to when I first started using Freesound, this is back in 2019. I was teaching at the Denham Springs High School's STEM and Robotics Center through the LSU STEM Pathways program, where we would go into local high schools in the area and teach them for dual enrollment credit in various STEM related fields. I focused on sound design courses and a few other in the digital design and emergent media pathways. That's always hard to say. And specifically, kind of the relevant things I'm pulling from for this presentation are my courses in sound design and one called digital storytelling, which was effectively just a survey of different technologies that can be used for creative purposes. Hopping into how I used Freesound, I first used it as a way to discuss different things that the students really do need to know if they're going to be an artist in the digital realm. So whenever you search on the website, you get this whole bar on the side where you can filter the various results in different ways. And I used that as a way to specify certain elements of the sound that the students could focus on and we could discuss in class. So things like, what's the difference between an MP3 and a WAV file, and why would you need to care about that? Same thing with sample rates and bit depth, or this is a mono file versus a stereo file. How are these going to behave differently? Sometimes we'd even get into surround if the class is a little more advanced. What I felt was also really important was being able to specify the copyright licensing, and we could discuss what that is and why, again, students should care. So that way they don't accidentally violate copyright law with their art. That's not a thing anyone really wants to be doing, I think. For the sake of the classes, we mainly stuck to the Creative Commons Zero license, but because they were for educational purposes and they weren't sharing anything, I didn't limit them to just that. At least by the end of the course, we started with just the CC0 stuff, just to kind of have a smaller pool to work with. But when it came to the final project, I let them kind of access the whole database, as long as they aren't going around and sharing this and making money off of it, and all that thing, keeping it in that fair use realm. We also briefly talked about tags and search engine optimization. We didn't dive too much into it, but students, I felt, should be able to know how to identify their sound so other people can find it, and if they're looking for specific things, how they can go around and find those sounds as well. All right, I'm just going to hop right into the assignments for time here. So once we've kind of introduced what Freesound is and how we're going to be using it in the course, I gave the students a variety of creative assignments where they could make their own art using Freesound and their own recordings and knowledge. So the first one I always like to start with is a soundscape, where I provide the students with an image of some kind. I usually gave them a choice of 3 or 4 to pick from, and they had to create an oral representation of that scene. So using only sounds from Freesound, being able to layer the sounds together and effectively, put the listener in that space. So for the student example I'm going to play now, this was the image that got this kind of mangrove swamp sort of feeling here. Very something you would see a lot in the southern United States, where the school was based. I'm going to talk a little bit over it just for time. Again, they've got the cicada sounds, the water lapping, just layers and layers. I think you can really feel like you're there, just surrounded in the humidity with the bugs and just everything else going on. So I gave them an A on this one. All right. Hopping on towards Foley, a lot of the students weren't aware that Foley is really a thing that they can go in and study and focus on and get jobs in the industry there. So when it's done well, you don't really notice it. there. So I introduced the concept to them as just another industry type of job that they could look into that maybe they hadn't thought about. So being able to combine these different sounds with video elements, again, sticking to here's your library of sounds from Freesound. Go and find them, and instead of just building this abstract scene, we're going to go in and sync them up to specific parts of the video from there. So I provided them a variety of short scenes. If they were a little more advanced, I could let them make their own. We had some video courses at the STEM Center as well. The one that I have here is a video from the movie Metropolis, if you're familiar with that. Again, it's just a short little 1 minute scene, but the student has gone in and added all of their own original compilation of sounds using free sound elements. So I'm just going to play that. And that's it. It has some extra frames of nothing at the end there. So yeah, I like this one. I really liked how they were able to kind of change up the specific sounds based on the camera angle at the time, and they did a pretty good job of syncing up the main steps to the overall crowd there. I'm gonna keep going. I've got two more little examples of stuff to look at with student work. So the first one we also use this for recording audio and making their own field recordings. Ideally, we wanted to have these uploaded to Freesound for other people to use, but we ran into a variety of technical issues and like privacy issues that the school didn't want us uploading all that at the time. So I have this whole account for the school that just doesn't actually have any uploaded sounds on it. But I may be doing that for some future projects now that I'm at a few different places since then. Some things have changed, but the whole premise was, okay, you're looking through Freesound, trying to find just the right sound for what you need, and maybe it's not there. Maybe you have some really great sounds, something that's a little less ideal. Well, let's just go make our own. So that way we know exactly what we need, and we can use that as a jumping board for other recording assignments later on in the semester. So we had a whole bunch of these Zoom H1 recorders in the class, and I would give the students a list of sounds that they need to go record. And these weren't specific sounds; it's things like, "Hey, get someone talking," a wet sound, a beep, a metallic, something that's repetitive, a wood or a natural sound, stuff like that. That's very vague, very descriptive. So that way the students could, just go around and just be listening for a lot of different things and try to create this recording that meets that purpose. So I've got this example here has some bits from me talking actually in another class. They recorded me doing that. There's also some motors, microwave beeps, and they went and like banged on a door to the outside of the building, kind of the main sounds. I'm going to stop it for the sake of time, but I did forget there's also like a metal rail that they hit on to create that higher pitched sound. So the last one I'm going to talk about is what I'm just calling like sampling in general. So we partly talked about that in the more traditional sense of, sampling for music, but in the context of these classes, it was a little more of, okay, we're taking this sound file, we're loading it into some samplers or a granular synthesizer and just using it to create different timbres and different pitched elements, things like that, putting them into drum machines so you could trigger the sounds whenever you want. This was the one where I said, hey, you could use, all of Freesound that's available to you and go from there. So with this one, I know the student loaded up a lot of these drum beats and played them using the MIDI controller with the drum in our DAW that we were using, and then supplemented it with a few other recordings from Freesound from there. So I'm just gonna play it.
Get ready.
I'm going to pause it there because it kind of repeats that progression for a while and the whole thing repeats. So we've heard basically all of it there, and I've only got 10 minutes. So, again, those are just some of the different assignments that I would use to, again, encourage creativity, how they used Freesound in different ways as a resource and could add on to that with their own sounds if they wanted to in the future. Uh, and again, just giving them a variety of useful skills that they could use to create their own music in the future was the goal of the course. So I'm just about out of time. So I've got my contact info here on the slide. If anyone does have any kind of follow up questions, I'd love, shoot me a message. I'd love to hear from you. But that's really all I've got, and more importantly, all I've got time for. So hope you have a great rest of your day.